3. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 52 of the Mike in New Haven podcast. Pleasure to be back. Another episode coming at you this week. If you haven't checked out my last episode, please do so. It was a nice little chat with Ken Davidoff of the New York Post. He's a baseball writer. He's been covering baseball in New York City for almost 30 years. We talked about those years covering those dynasty Yankee teams in the late 90s, what he thinks about the current state of baseball in New York, and of course, some of his fonder memories of working with some great people in the industry throughout the years. As promised, I had him on in episode 43 when we broke down the NBA season, and he's back now for episode 52, ladies and gentlemen. The one, the only, Marvin McIntyre has returned. Marvin, welcome back to the podcast.
Happy to be here, and I'm definitely happy to have a good time, and let's enjoy great dialogue again. Let's do it again.
Exactly. Yeah, people loved our NBA preview, man. I got a lot of good feedback on it. It's actually past 100 views now on YouTube. So that's good. That's the most views I've gotten on YouTube to this point. So people really dug the last time when we broke down the NBA. Now we're going to be breaking down baseball. No, I'm kidding. It's an inside joke between me and Mark because he's not really a baseball guy yet. Yeah, I have to get him into that eventually. Yeah, but we're going to
I don't think I'll ever get into that, bro.
Never say never. But we're going to be breaking down Super Bowl 55. Of course, it's a very interesting matchup. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are going to try to defend their championship and go back-to-back against one of the greatest to ever set foot in a football field, Tom Brady, as he's trying to win his 7th Super Bowl as he's playing in this game for the 10th time in his career. First time not with the New England Patriots. He's doing so this time with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So, Marvin, I'll give you the floor, man. Let me get your thoughts.
I think it's going to be a very interesting matchup. I'm expecting for fireworks. I'm definitely expecting for Tom Brady to show that he still has it, and for him to continue his success. We'll see about it, but I definitely think that Patrick Mahomes is coming, and I'm expecting for a great show from him, and just a lot of great leadership and a lot of great grit and grind from both sides of the football. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we're all rooting for a very competitive game, as you do with every Super Bowl. I mean, you and I, my team's not in it, the Giants. Of course, they haven't been in a long time, so it's not really of an intense rooting interest per se. But as always, I mean, unless your team's in it, you're always rooting for an entertaining, exciting game. And I think with the teams we have in there this year and the kind of quarterbacks we have in there this year, we're definitely going to get that. But before we get to the game itself, obviously, it was an eventful championship Sunday, NFC Championship between the Bucs and the Packers, AFC Championship between the Bills and the Chiefs. Let's break that down first. We got a lot of pressing questions we got to get to. And once again, I'll give the floor to you on that.
Yeah, I mean, first, let's just talk about the Buccaneers versus the Packers game. Let's give our reactions to that. What do you think about that one, Mike?
I mean, that game, we talked about it at length, both games, when we were on the phone watching it together on the previous Sunday. I felt like, and especially in the second half, there were times when the Bucs were almost trying to give that game away. Like they were sabotaging themselves at times. Like that first half, they played almost a flawless game. Like especially that end of the first half Hail Mary that Tom Brady threw that was a touchdown. I thought that was going to finish the Packers right then and there because that was such a momentum shifter in favor of Tampa Bay that I thought that there was no way that it would be a close game after that because that was a perfect throw. Their offense was firing on all cylinders. They were stifling the Packer offense, the Bucs defense, that is. And then in the second half, they just got so sloppy. But you and I said it at the time, it's the Packers just never seemed to be able to fully take advantage of the mistakes that the Buccaneers were making. So I thought that honestly, it was a combination of, the Packers not being able to take advantage and of course, the Bucs doing just enough that allowed the Bucs to get out of that game, by the skin of their teeth. So I thought they were gritty. I thought that they endured pretty well, but I also thought that they were careless a little bit in the second half.
Yeah, I definitely thought that they just did what they needed to do in order to pass through to get to the next step. I definitely thought that the Packers definitely could have won that game, and I definitely think that this is a legacy breaker in terms of how we view Aaron Rodgers now. We're not going to get into it just yet, but, his legacy was on the line for that one to me. And I think that Tom Brady, he definitely did show that he's a veteran. and he was not afraid of the moment. And that's the issue with Aaron Rodgers. He has that problem. You can see it on the sidelines where nobody was really, engaged or wanted to have. Um, no one had any belief in him. So I would just say that, on the other side, when it comes to Tom Brady, on the other hand, a lot of people believed in him. You could see that he was confident and just like everybody else was in him as well. So, and yes, definitely there were issues on for both sides of the game. I It definitely did get sloppy in the first half. I mean, in the second half, but in the first half, Tom Brady he definitely did play very well in the first half, and he did what was needed to get the victory.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's been there. He's been there. I mean, it's such a sports cliche. Oh, the guy that's been there. Like we talked about it a little bit when we were doing the NBA preview podcast, but it's true. I mean, listen, this is what the Bucks were looking for. This is part of the reason why they signed him. A guy with experience like that in the big game was not, as you said, was not going to shy away from the moment because you know what's helped. He knows what it takes to win, but he also knows the mistakes that you shouldn't make to lose that game. And did he make some mistakes in that game? Yeah, I don't want to contradict myself. He threw a couple of one interception wasn't his fault, but the other ones that he threw were bad, especially that last
Right.
one. But he wasn't going to. He knows enough by now at 43 years of age and 20 years in the game and 6 championships and 9 Super Bowl appearances overall. Um, Not only what you have to do to win, but also the cardinal sins you can't commit if you don't want to lose. And so, I felt that was definitely the case. And, like I said, towards the end, they did enough to get by.
But to me, I also think that it was just an intangibles game more than it was the physical football game itself, because I feel like leadership plays a big role. So that's what I thought it was to me. So
Yeah, no. If you look on, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Jason Pierre-Paul is somebody that has experience in winning a Super Bowl. He was on that Giants team that beat the Patriots the second time in Super Bowl 46. So how ironic is it that now they're teammates? Now he's teammates with Tom Brady as they go to the Super Bowl together. But Jason Pierre-Paul is a guy that's won before. But unless I'm missing somebody, I'll be honest, I haven't done a deep dive on the Buccaneers roster. I think he might be the only one outside of Tom, of course, that has any experience in deep playoff runs in a Super Bowl type environment. But no, yeah, you're right. Leadership does play a role because I'm sure, listen, he was telling some of these guys that have never experienced this before what it takes to win a game like this. And obviously, Tom, if you look on the sideline, does Tom get frustrated sometimes? Yeah, I think all athletes with intense desire and intense competitiveness like Tom get that way on the sidelines. It's natural in an environment like that. But you'll
right,
never see
it's
him be
competitive game.
dejected. Right. You'll never see him be dejected, though. He's never
Right.
out of it mentally. He's always engaged. He's always, trying to psych his guys up and something like that. Like you said, it is an intangible. And I think it's part, besides his talent, of course, it's part of the reason why the Bucks were so eager to bring him in. And as you see, it's a move that's paid off to this point and might culminate in them winning their first Super Bowl since 2002.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
We'll get to that later.
But let's move on to some of these questions.
Yeah.
What do you think about the Bucks win? We just went over that, but
Done.
let's move on to the next one. Did Aaron Rodgers choke?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Live podcasting at its finest, by the way. Did Aaron Rodgers choke? I mean, I felt part of it is his fault. I mean, I don't think anybody is going to sit here unless you're like a super duper Packers homer, is going to sit here and say that he's not partially to blame for this loss. But I just felt it was the whole team, bro, and I felt that it was kind of the coaching. Because we'll talk about it later, so I don't want to give too much of it away. But there's one decision everybody was talking about late in that game that people felt cost the Packers the game. But I mean, how much of it do we put on Rodgers versus the coaching and versus certain guys not catching certain passes? Like there was a couple balls there Aaron Rodgers threw, like he hit guys like right in the hands, and they would have been big yardage gains, and they just dropped the ball. So I think the whole team choked. I think part of the blame obviously does go to Rodgers. Because he made one decision though. Like this is the one play that I looked at. I didn't realize at the time when they showed the replay it made sense. right before that 4th and goal, which we'll get to later, where they made the controversial call, he had the pocket had opened up, and there was no defender immediately in front of him. And this is where I think he messed up big time. This is when it was 31-23. He had the pocket open. There was no linebacker there. Like all the safeties, all the linebackers were in the end zone covering receivers and whatnot, as they should be. He could have ran it in the end zone. He had a chance. And he's not a bad runner. He's not like an elite. He's not Lamar Jackson as far as a rushing quarterback, but he's not like Eli Manning. Eli Manning was as stiff as they came. Aaron Rodgers is pretty decently mobile, always has been. I think he should have ran it in there. So I think that part was his fault. But I think a lot of it was, again, a team-like effort, guys dropping passes and, some of the coaching decisions too.
I thought that he did choke. I felt like that he did not capitalize on the 3 turnovers. I mean, if he gets 3 field goals, even if he's in field goal range, they still have a chance of winning that game, or they're ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, yes, I do think the whole team did choke as well, but I think that the bulk of the blame deserves to be on Aaron Rodgers. I would give it maybe about 80% of the blame on him. 80%.
Yeah, I just felt like at times he was tentative in that game. Like you talked about you talked about guys that do and don't shy away from the moment. We talked about how Brady doesn't shy away from the moment, something that obviously has come with experience and being in so many big games over the course of a great Hall of Fame career. Right. I mean, there are times with Rodgers, though, where, we've seen him go for it. Like, we've seen him and usually it works out well when he does, because the game I go back to, bro, is that game against the Cowboys a couple of years ago when the Cowboys went 13-3, and this was like Dak and Zeke's first year, and everybody was saying, oh, the Cowboys, man, they might go all the way this year and this, that, the other. Right. Bro, he made, we later learned that he was calling these plays himself. Mike McCarthy wasn't calling these plays. Remember those crisp passes that he was making, those deep balls that he was throwing, like perfect precision, in the pocket, getting out of the pocket, things like that. So we've seen him with the game on the line go for it time and again and have it work out. So for him to be tentative in this game, percentages of how much blame we would assign to him might vary. But I think if I had to put a percentage, I'm going to go with an even number here, or not an even number, not a number, but it fits well into my math. 25% of the blame, I think, goes to him. 25%. 25. I say this like this: 25% him, 25% his receivers, 25% the defense, which was miserable in the first half, which is why they were down so big in the first place, and then 25% some of the coaching decisions. So I assign the blame evenly. But with Rodgers, bro, that's the thing I didn't like. I felt like he was kind of, like you said, I thought he was like super duper shy in a game that, with not that many years left in his career, bro, you got to, any risk that you can take, even if it doesn't work out, at least you could say you took the risk.
Right, exactly. And what I think, hold on, bro. I'm starting to hear an echo.
I don't hear it on my end.
I hear it on my end.
You sound fine to me. I'll give you a second to fix it. In the meantime, folks, please subscribe to the Mike the New Haven podcast. Leave a 5-star rate and review. Subscribe to Marvin's podcast, Miles Ahead, and leave a 5-star rate and review for him. And go to my YouTube channel, MC's Audio, MC''S Audio, and subscribe to my YouTube channel there, where you will get the video version of this podcast. Like I said, previous episode, Ken Davidoff, episode 51, New York Post baseball writer. Are the audio issues fixed?
I actually don't know what it was, but it sounded like I was repeating myself as I was talking.
There's reverb?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it might be fixed now.
Okay.
But in terms of the time when he could have ran it, yes, I definitely think that he could have definitely ran for that touchdown, because he's ran for touchdowns plenty of times in his career. Right. And the fact that I can understand if Eli Manning decided to stay there and throw it, or a whole bunch of other quarterbacks like Ben Roethlisberger. Even Tom Brady, he's ran it for a touchdown. Remember when he did it to the Kansas City Chiefs in what was it, 2017?
Yeah, that AFC Championship game, they won it overtime.
So, but he's done that before, and this is why Tom Brady, he was not afraid at the moment of even running. Aaron Rodgers, he was afraid of running, which he's very great at doing, and he just gave up on the play. So yeah, I would definitely give 80% to him, because he's the leader of the offense. And plus, Matt LaFleur, yes, he's young, but the
Yeah.
thing is, it's his second year coaching. So
Right.
he's more so the leader than Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is more so the leader because he knows the team. He knows how everybody wants to go about doing things. And obviously he has some say on his offense. So that's what I think about the play.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing I was looking at. I'm like, you think honestly? Let me ask you a question, bro. You think he got tunnel vision? Because like when you're so focused on the play, sometimes you miss things that would have helped you. I think that's life. Sometimes we get so focused that we miss something that could have served us well in whatever it is that we're doing. Do you think that maybe he just got tunnel vision that moment and didn't realize he had an open space to run?
It's possible, very possible, but with somebody with as high football IQ as him,
Hmm.
you would expect for him to know all of his options.
Right.
So I can't really totally give him that.
Mm. That's
It's
fair.
a
That's
lot of
fair.
players that are tunnel vision who are just going to throw at all costs, but I
Mm.
can't give him that one because of how that he has displayed himself throughout his career. So, but yeah,
That's fair. Yeah, I'll give you that one. That's fair. Yeah, no, I felt. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's one that's gonna. He's had a lot of bad losses. I think the worst one he might have had was to my Giants in
right,
2012 when they were 15-1, defending champions at the time, and Eli went into Lambeau and they dropped 37 on him. And again, another end of the first half Hail Mary to Hakeem Nicks. But I think the Giants were just they had caught fire at the right time. They were on a hot streak. Nobody could really touch them, and you chalk it up to that, I guess. But this one, given the fact that this game was winnable at so many different points with plenty of time left on the clock too. I
right,
think this one is yeah, we'll talk about his legacy later, but it definitely is one of the worst ones, if not the worst one he's had in his career.
right. Let's move on to the next question.
Mhm.
Who deserves more blame, Aaron Rodgers or the coach for the loss?
I just got on Aaron Rodgers for not running it on that third and goal, because he had the open space, like we said. I got to get on the coach, though, even more so, because say what you want about the game that Aaron Rodgers played and what he did, and more importantly, what he didn't do
Right,
in this game. Fourth and goal, season on the line, down by 8. You're at home in the NFC Championship game, chance to go to the Super Bowl. You have one of the greatest, most talented quarterbacks that's ever played the game. Why are you kicking a field goal? Like
right,
that was one of those decisions that sometimes you don't realize how bad or good a decision is until well after the game's over. Then it dawns on you as a fan. But that's one of those decisions that in the moment everybody was kind of like, huh? Like I
yeah,
wasn't tweeting about it, but I was scrolling through Twitter just to see what people were saying about the game because obviously they were watching it too, and everybody collectively was just like, "What? Like you're not going for it?" Like okay,
right,
like I said before, if you go for it and it doesn't work out and you turn the ball over on downs, it sucks, but you went for it. Like there's an old saying by Wayne Gretzky, and I said it to you before: you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. There, season on
that's
the
one of my
line.
favorite sayings.
Mine too, and especially as a hockey fan.
Yeah,
Sees on the line down by 8 like that. Why are you not going for it? So I think I would have to assign the blame evenly. To me, it's 50% Rodgers, but it's also plenty 50% on the floor because that to me, it wasn't just a bad decision in terms of game management. It was mind-numbingly stupid to
right,
not
yeah,
go for it. I mean, if you have a so-so quarterback there, okay, fine. You have Aaron Rodgers, who talent-wise is top 3 all time, and it ain't 3.
no, it's not three, it's not. But I will say that I'm gonna have to place blame on both of them. Um,
Mm.
I felt like Aaron Rodgers, he definitely could have showed up at certain instances, but even for that moment, for the field goal instance, he should
Yeah,
have been hounding the coach
yeah,
on the sideline, saying, "Why are we kicking this?" He should have been like, he should have at least like taken a timeout or something and said, "We should not be kicking this. Let's go for it, and let's take the shot of trying to win." instead of just backing off and kicking the field goal and trusting our defense when
Right.
all Tom Brady needed was just one first down. That's it.
Right. You got that. And he got that. And yeah, they almost got the ball back. And there was that controversial penalty, which we'll talk about later, involving the refs on third down, the pass interference call. But the thing is this, it should have never gotten to that point. And not even that, but let's say, I mean, I'll admit, when they were opting to go for the field goal there on that fourth down, I remember thinking to myself, because usually what ends up following, and we know this years of watching football and years of playing Madden, that the onside kick immediately follows. And when is the onside kick ever successful? Hardly ever. I mean, I know there was that moment also involving the Packers with Rodgers against the Seahawks back in 2015, where the Seahawks recovered it and they won the game. But that, they call that, that play a miracle in particular because it's just so uncommon. So if you have, I mean, listen, the game was.
Hey, it was successful last game.
Yeah, it was successful last game as well, but it's a rare thing for it to happen.
Of course.
And so why even put yourself in a position where you have to take that gamble and your season comes down to that? I mean, there's a saying in baseball, you don't get beat on your third best pitch. If your best pitch is a fastball and you throw a fastball and a guy hits it for a home run, okay, it's your best pitch. At least you got beat on that. You didn't get beat on your slider, your curveball. Same thing here. If your season's going to end, don't let it end because you didn't go for it. You played conservative, and all the other team had to do was just run out the clock. Let it end because your best quarterback took a shot, your best player took a shot, and by the draw it just didn't work out.
All right.
Get beat with your best option.
All right. Here's the next one. Is Aaron Rodgers a victim, or should his leadership be questioned?
If Mike McCarthy was still coaching, and we're talking about Marvin McIntyre here in the Mike and Maven podcast, crossover, by the way.
Crossover.
You can catch this conversation on his podcast, Miles Ahead, as well, which you should subscribe to. Miles Ahead podcast. Leave a 5-star rating review. He does great work. He's awesome. I think if Mike McCarthy was still coaching the Packers, I would say Rodgers is easily a victim because those years, McCarthy, as we found out with him running the Cowboys this year, even before Dak got hurt, he's just not a great X's and O's coach. And not to mention, Rodgers had some pretty awful defenses all those years with the Packers, at least up until LaFleur came and they got a little bit better. But you remember watching that NFC Championship game against the Falcons or against the 49ers. I mean, they got their doors blown off in the NFC Championship game. It wasn't even close. I felt bad for Aaron because there was nothing he could do. I mean, his defense was just, Swiss cheese pretty much. And so that being said, this time around, I think he was a victim in that there was a bad call on 4th and goal. He's definitely a victim there. But again, we talk about percentages and how we assign blame or how we even assign credit. I think 75% of it, 25% of it is victim. 75% of it has to be his leadership. And that's not to say that he's a bad locker room guy. I don't know. I'm not there. Only people that cover the Packers would know how Aaron Rodgers is in the locker room. We don't know that. Right. But as far as his leadership, we talked earlier about the tentativeness. We talked about some of those decisions being made late. And we talked about accountability after the game. Accountability in terms of that particular decision. Even then, he said in regards to that 4th and goal, it wasn't my decision. Now, even if that's true, maybe that's not something that you want to say because it could come across as throwing your coach underneath the bus. I think we've gone a decade now because he won that Super Bowl in 2011 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's been a decade now since Aaron Rodgers has played in and won his only Super Bowl. To not ask questions about his leadership would essentially be letting him off the hook and being biased. I think you have to ask some serious questions about what kind of leader Aaron Rodgers is.
Right. I think that his leadership should be in question just based on his mood on the sidelines.
Yep.
It's not like he's serene and ready for the moment, or it's
or
not
intense, like he's fired up.
Like he's fired up just because he's down. Like a Patrick Mahomes or something like that. He's not like that. Or Tom Brady or Joe Montana. He's nothing like those type of leaders. Whenever that you look to the sideline, the game's over. The game's over.
Yeah, you do. It's true. It's true.
He's more somebody where he has to have the lead.
Yeah, he's a front runner.
He's a front runner. So, and a lot of analysts, they don't want to give that to him. Like a whole lot of analysts. I'm not even going to name names, but just for the sake of this podcast, I'm not going to do it. But I will say this is that they don't want to expose him for not being a great leader. That's what it is. That's his problem. So I feel like if he was better at his leadership role, then they probably would have won last game. But I would also say this is that the franchise, they have catered to him. They've catered to him. They've got the coach that they needed.
Which they should. I mean, he's their franchise player.
Right. But over the past 2 seasons, they're 26 and 3. 26 and 6 for the record. That's great. And they've been over the 2 NFC title games, and they almost won. I mean, no, they did not almost win the first one, but they have given him weapons, and he just hasn't came up with the right plays or done the right things in order to capitalize and get to a Super Bowl.
I agree. How much more?
Because he knows what's on the line, and he knows that his career is at stake. And I think that if he would have just done things correctly, he would be exactly where he should be, which is a State Farm matchup between Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers. But we're not going to get that. So
yeah, at least maybe next year, who knows? But the Rodgers rate versus the Patrick price won't happen. But you talk about leaders, and for all my hockey fans watching this, you'll understand this. I'm wearing my Mark Messier Rangers jersey. One of the reasons he's one of the greatest of all time, obviously when it comes to hockey. But one of the reasons that Mark was such a great player was he was also a great leader. It was the same thing. He was like the Tom Brady of hockey in that he was never down, he was never out. It was always intensity and drive right up until the final buzzer, right up until the clock hit triple zeros. And he never let his guys feel down. Even if he was feeling some type of way during a game that wasn't going the Rangers' way, he had a great poker face to where you could never, ever see that. He encouraged guys to play to their maximum. And I just don't feel like Aaron Rodgers does that. And that's not the mark of a champion. Because, hey, listen, you look at Brady, you look at Mahomes to this point, you look at Messier. Messier won 6 Stanley Cups in his career. And part of that, of course, is great leadership, and not just how you carry yourself, but how your attitude affects the guys around you.
I agree. Now let's go over to the next one. Dang. I'm hearing the echo again, bro.
That's all right. So while you take care of that, more plugs. Actually, you know what? Live podcasting is fine. So let me get my water real quick. You're right back. The setup of my show. That's why I said it. This is not it's not the most professional thing in the world. And I mean that in a good way because, honestly, yeah, it is. I'll get up and get a water in the middle of the podcast. I actually used to do that before I started introducing the Zoom method of recording. I used to do that often to where my guests will be talking and they had enough sense to keep talking while I went and got a water.
Yeah, I got to get some water too. I got a water bottle right here. Let me just
get it. Well, yeah, we'll take a water break here in the Mike Even podcast.
All right.
And I'll keep spitballing. I am working on a few guests while Marvin gets his water. I am working on a few guests for the show. I mentioned retired NYPD detective first grade Irma Rivera. I'm in the final stages of confirming a date with her, and she'll be joining the show at some point next month. I don't want to say the exact date, but she'll be on the show pretty soon. Let's put it that way. I'm also working on some other folks. I don't want to say who because I want them to be able to come on, and I don't want to spoil it, but retired NYPD detective Irma Rivera is the one I'm comfortable with saying will be on the show pretty soon. So look out for when that drops. For all you police off the cuff fans listening to this podcast, I hope you'll watch my chat with her. So yeah, we're back now on the Mike and Haven podcast after a water break and me getting my flash drive as well, that break. And the next question on the list, Marvin McIntyre, take it away.
Has Aaron Rodgers ever been a clutch quarterback?
When you were talking to me about this on Sundays, this came to my mind, and this might be some wild slander. And I say that jokingly. Of course, I don't want to actually slander anybody because I don't want to get sued. Um, but I'm thinking Aaron Rodgers has had a few clutch moments in his career, right? You're
Yeah,
gonna love this comparison. I mentioned the game against the Cowboys, right? He had that great game. Even the game he lost against the Cardinals, it wasn't his fault because the defense just got torched. That was a shootout. That's the game they lost like 51-45. So, I mean, he had clutch moments in that game. He threw a Hail Mary in that game that tied the game. Um, he's played some great games in his career. I'm thinking to
right.
myself, though, is Aaron Rodgers, this is where you're going to love it, is Aaron Rodgers the Damian Lillard of the NFL? Because think about it. Dame has had a few moments, right? He hit that shot against the Rockets back in 2014 that won the series and sent him to the second round against the Spurs. Then he hit that shot. I think there was another shot he hit before the one against OKC. What was that other crazy shot that he hit that people were going up in arms about? This is prior to OKC. I don't think it was against Houston. I think it was against somebody else.
I think it was just OKC.
Yeah, okay. So he has that shot against Houston in 2014. Then he has that shot against OKC that knocks them out the first round, and they go to the second round and whatnot. And so that kind of changed the perception of Damian Lillard to where we kind of give Damian Lillard more credit than we really should give him. So that being said, that's why I asked that question because, although they've had their fair share of, wow, that was clutch type moments, would you define their whole career as clutch? That's a fair question. That's what I'm saying. So I think he's kind of like the Damian Lillard of the NBA, where if not for those few moments, how would we perceive Aaron Rodgers?
That's a very great comparison, but I cannot go that far. I can't go that far because Aaron Rodgers is a champion, so I can't go that far.
Right? Yeah, he is. He is. He has won.
He
Even
has
if it's been a long
won,
time ago,
so I
he's
gotta give him
won.
his credit. I gotta give him
Right?
his credit. But I
Yeah.
will say this: he has dwindled in terms of how clutch he is, and I will say that he only seems to be clutch in the divisional round.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's actually a
It's
hallmark of
never
his
the
career.
NFC title game.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a lot of times where people want to blame the defense,
Mhm.
but I think some of that is on him as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's where both sides need to take blame in that situation. So I think I'm gonna go with Aaron Rodgers. He's not clutch, but he's more like I would say like in comparison to like a Steve Young,
Mhm.
who wasn't really considered clutch at all either, where he kind of needed Deion Sanders to help with the defense in order for him to get to where he needed to be.
But
So
Steve Young had his moments too, because I'm not just talking about the year they won the Super Bowl in 1994. But if you remember, there was a great game against the Packers. Brett Favre and the Packers, they were coming off of back-to-back trips to the Super Bowl after they beat the Patriots and lost to Elway and the Broncos, where in 98, the 98 playoffs, but it was really early 99, it was just the 98 season, Steve Young had that game against the Packers where he threw that game-winning touchdown to Terrell Owens with
right.
like 10 seconds left. So maybe that changed the way that Steve Young was perceived because we don't know how they were covering Steve Young in 1998, 1999. But, yeah,
But I promise you, if he was playing today, he'd be covered just like Aaron Rodgers.
probably, right? He'd have to be. Yeah, it's a good comparison because I think Aaron Rodgers, to say that he doesn't have the clutch factor would be wrong because he's shown he can handle himself in the big moment because he's had, like you said, he had moments where he's dwindled. Yeah, he just dwindled this past Sunday, in my opinion, in
Right.
your opinion too. But he's had moments where he's excelled. So while he doesn't have this consistent pattern of being clutch all the time, or at least a vast majority of the time, he doesn't have a consistent pattern either of choking all the time either. So I would say he's
He
not
has a
clutch for his career, but he's adept.
he has a consistent pattern of choking, but it's only in the NFC title game. You could expect for him to show up in the divisional round,
Or the
just
wild
not
card.
in not in the wild card, right? But not in the time where it matters most, which is the conference championship game.
Because I mean, well, how much blame will we assign each NFC championship loss? I mean, let's think about the games that the Packers have lost, including this past Sunday. Okay, so this past Sunday against the Bucks, Last year, didn't they get their doors blown off by the 49ers in the NFC
Yeah,
Championship game?
yeah, they did. But
Then they got
I,
blown out by the Falcons.
I would give him a lot of the blame for that one, for last
Niners
year's
won.
game, for last year's game,
Mm.
because of how he played and his leadership on the sideline. It wasn't really good either. But
Yeah,
in terms of the one where he lost to Colin Kaepernick, it was more so bad defense.
yeah, you can't really do anything about that. Yeah, that was just Colin Kaepernick. That was when Colin Kaepernick was on one. Like this is before,
Right.
like, somebody said this the other day. This is before people learned how to stop Colin Kaepernick. So that one's that one's a little bit different. The one that he lost against the Seahawks, that was special teams. Special teams blew that one. That really wasn't his fault. There was nothing he could do about that.
But I would also say that it was he was also injured that game too, I would say.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a fair amount of blame that you could assign to him, and there's also a fair amount of blame that you could. Some of them are his fault, some of them are not. But the last two, I think it would be fair. And obviously, I mentioned the Falcons one. There was nothing he could do about that. Like I said, the defense just got torpedoed in that game. He couldn't do anything. But yeah, I think these last 2 years, yeah, it's kind of healthy to assign the blame to him.
Right. Let's move on to the next question. Will Aaron Rodgers ever get back to a Super Bowl?
I mentioned this to you the previous Sunday, over the phone, and I raised this here on the podcast as well. I'll never say never because I made the joke. I mean, we all remember when Brett Favre was going through that period where, oh, I'm retiring, then I'm not retiring, and I am retiring again, then I'm coming back. And he went to the Vikings, and at 95 years old, joking, of course, he brought him to the NFC Championship game where had it not been for him losing his mind for a second and choosing to throw a pass across his body, which, if as any old school football fan will tell you, that's the cardinal sin for a quarterback. Never throw across your body. He did that. And, had it not been for him throwing that costly interception, Brett Favre was like 40 something years old, about to bring the Vikings to the Super Bowl. So, and Brett Favre, on a talent level, when we say that Brett Favre is as talented as Aaron Rodgers, no, that's not to diminish Brett Favre. Brett Favre had a great career as a Hall of Famer. But he's obviously not as talented as Rodgers is at that position. And Rodgers is a little bit younger than Favre was when Favre was with the Vikings about to bring him back to the Super Bowl until that moment. So I would have to say, I'll never say never. I mean, it would not surprise me if at this time next year, even amidst all this uncertainty with, oh, Aaron Rodgers, what about his future? What's he going to do? Things like that. It wouldn't surprise me if we're laughing at this conversation that we're having right now, a year from now, as the Packers are getting ready to play in their first Super Bowl since 2010.
Honestly, I don't see it happening.
That's fair. Your reasons, though?
I don't see it happening because of teams getting better.
Yeah.
I think that the older that Aaron Rodgers gets and the more that his athleticism dwindles, the more that he will be sustained to be able to get that he will not be able to be sustained to be able to take those hits. And I feel like there's certain teams that are just a quarterback away or like a certain cornerback away from being where they need to be.
Right.
And, Aaron Rodgers, he's 37 years old and he turns 38 in like December, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that it's going to help the fact that he's getting older. And plus, like, his game does rely on a certain level of athleticism as well. So I don't know if I could really give him that as well. And then, like I said, you got Seattle. They're coming together. It's taking some time. I think they need one more receiver and maybe about another good running back on their side as well. And plus, like, they need some time to gel together as well. But I will say this, Russell Wilson, he's a better leader than Aaron Rodgers is. Better leader than Aaron Rodgers is. But I will say this as well. I feel like the Rams, they're about a quarterback away as well.
Yeah.
From getting to the Super Bowl. And their defense is elite. And tell you the truth, if we don't really know if Aaron Donald would have played the entire game, that they would have been able to come up and win that game.
And not only that, yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. Let's keep in mind the other teams in the NFC West. The Cardinals have Kyler Murray. They got off to a pretty good start. They faded late, but I don't see them going away. And let's not forget prior to this season, the previous defending NFC champions, the 49ers had a lot of injuries. This was just a lost year because of so many different injuries that they suffered. If the 49ers are healthy next year, because I don't really blame the coaching staff for what happened. They had so little to work with because they were just decimated. If
Right.
they're healthy and back to 100% condition next year, who's to
Right.
say the 49ers won't be a difficult team to stop? I'm not giving up on the Niners.
And did you hear they could get Matthew Stafford? So
They could, because Matthew Stafford
I
wants
mean,
out of
that's looking
Detroit.
real good for them.
If they get Matthew Stafford over to the Niners and they decide to part ways with Jimmy Garoppolo, hey, that would look great, because Stafford's
Right.
still got a lot to give. I would love it. I mean, I would love it if he ended up. I love Daniel Jones, but I wouldn't complain if Stafford became a giant. But I
Right.
think, hey, don't underestimate this, and we'll kind of talk about this guy later on. It wouldn't surprise me if Matthew Stafford's starting games next year for a certain team up in Massachusetts.
Hey, that's a good one. That's a good
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
It could happen.
It could
It
happen.
could happen. Now let's go over to the next one.
Mhm.
How should the refs be viewed for this game?
I feel like I don't want to be this guy that always just goes after the refs and the refs stink. And the refs do stink in not just football, but like in all sports,
Yeah.
in
They've had their
baseball.
moments.
They've had their moments for sure. But like for the majority of the time, like especially in basketball, I find this to be the case. The refs are awful.
Right.
So I don't know, because you get to a point with the referees where you keep trashing them long enough, it just gets to be redundant because eventually the players got to play and you can't always assign blame to those wearing stripes. But I felt that they called such a ridiculously bad game. Like there were some really stupid calls, and that pass interference call. I mean, I know he tugged on the jersey a little bit late in the game, and this is what I wanted to talk about. There was, of course, that infamous third down PI call
Right.
where the Packers defense gets called for pass interference, and if had it been no flag, the Packers would have gotten the ball back and would have had one more chance to go down the field and try to tie this game. And who knows what would have happened? Would they have done that? Would they have not? We don't know. We'll never know. But that being said, and I've said this rule before, and Bob Ryan of the Boston Globe, who's a legendary NBA writer, has this rule too. He says his line is the mindset of a referee should be why are people here to watch this game? They're not here to watch this game because of me. And you don't want to be the guy or the gal that makes the call that draws all the attention away from the field or from the court or from the ice to you, and especially if it's a bad call there. And I felt that PI call was a bad call in that, okay, if it's blatant, then yeah, call it. If it's an obvious penalty, throw the flag. You should. You have to.
Right.
But they had not been calling certain things throughout the entire game. If you're
That's a fact.
gonna call pass interference, for example, and I bring that up because that's the most relevant penalty of this particular game,
Right.
call it evenly. Even if we don't agree with the way it's being called, at least you're calling it consistently. They were not for the first three quarters. And you would think
Right.
in a time like that, they say swallow your whistle, and keep your flag in your pocket. Unless
Right.
it's something obvious, then yeah, call it. And I felt that really, I mean, the Packers, I won't say they cost the Packers the game. The Packers cost the Packers the game.
Right.
But they really, it wasn't their finest hour. I'll put it that way about the refs. But again, this is a common theme with them.
Yeah, I thought they were highly inconsistent as well.
Mhm.
I felt like they definitely did not have to call the last one,
Mhm.
especially since, it's a let them play. Like they were letting the cornerbacks get off on the Packers throughout the whole entire game. They missed
Yeah.
like quite a few calls that
Yeah.
should have been called a pass interference, and they didn't call it. So if they're talking about letting them play, they should have let them play for the last one as well. And I felt like that wasn't right. But reps, they have always been inconsistent. And not only that,
Put it nicely.
the game, it was a late call, right?
Yeah.
Very late call, and they
Very
was
late.
talking about that on the broadcast, and they was talking about how late it was, and I felt like if they would have had another shot, it's very possible they could have won the game. But like I said, in the demeanor, it was over. And we already know that we already see that Aaron Rodgers, he cannot come up with it in the clutch. So I think that the refs, they played a part, but it was not as significant as people want to say it is, or believe it
Yeah.
is. I feel like they play a part, but it's always up to the players as well um, to combat whatever the refs do.
Yeah,
You
it
know,
wasn't like Saints Rams a couple years ago where that was an obvious penalty
right,
that wasn't
right.
called.
That
Like
was crazy.
that was
That
a
was
royal
crazy.
screw up. That was a
Right,
royal mistake. This wasn't that. It was bad, but it wasn't that level of bad. I will, for the sake of being fair, I will say that.
right. All right. Let's move on to the next one. What it? Wait, hold on. All right. Was it Tom Brady who won the game, or was it the defense?
Hmm. We talked earlier about how Tom Brady did what he had to do um, to get by. It was not his crispest performance. We
No,
said that, last week. We'll say it again here. Um, I mean, listen, he had a great first half. He just had a really bad second half. And the Packers, to their credit, listen, in fairness, I know we're bashing them for their late game decision making, and things like that, but they had, for as bad a first half as they had, they redeemed themselves somewhat with a pretty decent second half. They made that
right.
game close. They had a chance to tie it, obviously. So it was kind of like a switch got flipped because the Bucks were firing in all cylinders in the first half, and then they kind of got a little careless, like we talked about earlier in the second. If I
Exactly.
had to assign who deserved the majority of the credit, is this to say that Tom Brady deserves no credit? No, of course not. He deserves credit. I would give a majority of the credit though to the defense. I think the defense really, even the questionable coaching calls by LaFleur notwithstanding, they bared down when they had to. And listen, are they a lockdown defense? No, they're not going to remind anybody of the 2000 Ravens or the 2015 Broncos or the team or the 85 Bears that had legendary defenses. But they're a defense that they're the classic case of bend, don't break. The Giants of 2011 were this way when they beat Tom Brady the second time. They would bend, but they never ever broke. They were always able to make defensive stands when they had to. I think that was the Bucks case when they needed to make defensive stands, really right up until that last little play in the red zone, up 8. I felt that they were great at that. So if I had to decide who deserves more credit, I'm saying the defense, bro.
I'm gonna give it to a little of both. I think that the defense played very well. They definitely did get to Aaron Rodgers. They were able to take advantage of the O line being weak a little bit. And I would say that they were able to get an interception for Scotty Miller to be able to get the touchdown. So, if that play doesn't happen, then you can make the case that the Packers are still in the lead for the game. So I'm gonna have to give Tom Brady and the defense credit.
Yeah,
I
that's
would
fair.
I would say this maybe about a 50-50 split, just in terms
Yeah,
of
yeah,
credit.
no, yeah, that
You
makes sense because
know,
it was a tale of two halves, like I said.
right, right. It's not like Tom Brady had the best game, and it's not like he had the worst game either. It was kind
Right.
of
No, yeah,
right,
that's true. That's true for sure. No, I think the first half is Tom Brady completely because, like I said, they played a very crisp first half. They were firing on all cylinders, and the second half was the defense. But
right,
yeah, no, I just give more credit to the defense because on those turnovers, of which there were many in the second half, they
right,
stood down and did what they had to do when they had to.
right. Okay, let's go on to the next question. Um, could Joe Montana have done the same thing that Tom Brady did?
Yes, because he almost did it. And people, young, older football fans will remember this, or fans like Marvin and I that have done their homework will know this. But for those of you who are younger, Joe Montana finished up his career with the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was basically on his way to doing what Brady has done before Brady even got to the league. Because people forget, he took the 1993 Chiefs after the 49ers had opted to go with Steve Young as their quarterback going forward and let go of Joe. Joe went out to Kansas City to play for, ironically enough, the Chiefs, who are about to play in their second consecutive Super Bowl. They went to the AFC Championship game, Joe's first year there, against the Buffalo Bills, who they just got done beating in this AFC Championship game. It's crazy how things go full circle. And Joe got knocked out of that game with a concussion. And so he had to sit on the sideline while the Bills won that game and went on to go to the Super Bowl where they got their doors blown off by the Cowboys again. So that being said, Joe, yeah, could he have done it? Yeah, because he almost did it. And had it not been for the fact that he got concussed in that game, he would have done it. So he would have, and he would have played. I think that's not the year they played the Niners. I think it actually might be. I might be. No, yeah, they lost to the Bills. Never mind. They lost to the Bills, so it wasn't that year. But no, he almost, this is the year before the 49ers won the Super Bowl, because this is 93. The 49ers won the Super Bowl in 94. He almost did it in 93. So, yeah, there's not a doubt in my mind that if Joe Montana was playing today and the Niners had done the same thing to him today, if he doesn't get concussed like he did in that game, yeah, he does this. No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that Joe Montana, that I would take him over Tom Brady. But I can see why other people would take Tom Brady. And as a matter of fact, the fact that Tom Brady has even gotten to this one, I would have to actually give the edge to Tom Brady in terms of who's the better quarterback for now.
Yeah, no, yeah, and even if I'll say this, and we'll talk about the game itself later. Even if Brady does not win, next week, or not next week, but because a couple weeks from now, I don't think it really hurts his legacy.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah, because there's no shame in losing to this kind of a quarterback, which we'll talk about later.
Definitely not.
So yeah, no, I would agree with your assessment.
But I would say that I can agree. I think that Joe Montana would definitely get to a Super Bowl if he had the same amount of weapons as Tom Brady did.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Joe was an effective quarterback. Really,
right.
Joe never had a drop off. That's the thing about Joe. It's not like it wasn't like Peyton Manning at the end where it was like, oh yeah, Peyton, it's time. Like everybody knew it was time for Peyton to retire.
Exactly. Yeah.
That didn't happen with Joe. Joe just got injured. It was just unfortunate. He got a concussion. There was nothing he could do about it. Right. But he was an effective quarterback. It's not like he went to Kansas City and sucked. No, he took him to the AFC Championship game.
Right. All right. Let's move on to the next one. Should people compare Tom Brady to MJ?
Don't you have to? Because I was listening to this debate the other day on a podcast I listened to called The Kirk Minahan Show, which is a Barstool Sports podcast. Mm-hmm. And they were doing the sports Mount Rushmore. Like, who would you throw on a sports Mount Rushmore? Like baseball, it's kind of, it's you can throw different people on there. Like they were saying Babe Ruth maybe is a guy. But baseball is different because there's so many great athletes and legends that have played in that particular sport. But let's focus on like the NBA, NFL, NHL, Mount Rushmore. You're not a hockey guy, obviously, but you know who Wayne Gretzky is. So who belongs in the hockey Mount Rushmore? Obviously, Gretzky. NBA, MJ. NFL, you have to put Brady up there. I think you kind of have to make that comparison in terms of impact, in terms of consistent excellence, in terms of there never being a drop-off in production, in terms of transcending the game. Is Tom Brady a transcendent, once-in-a-lifetime athlete like Patrick Mahomes is, or like Steph Curry or LeBron James is, or like Michael Jordan was? No. Tom Brady has never been known as a great athlete. But in terms of the consistency, in terms of the constant drive to want more and never settle, I think you have to compare him to MJ because, when you talk about the sports Mount Rushmore, I mentioned Gretzky. Gretzky he won championships. He won 4 Stanley Cups. He shattered the record books. He put up records and numbers that'll never, ever be broken, ever. But in terms of impact, I think Tom Brady's impact on sports as a whole is greater than any MLB legend. And I say that as a massive baseball fan. It's greater than Gretzky's, and I say that as a massive hockey fan as well. And I think it's equal to MJ. Because when you do, think about it. Somebody made this comparison, bro, and I want to see what you think about it. Imagine MJ when he came out of retirement the third time. Why did I put up 4 fingers? The third time. as there's the right amount of fingers. And imagine him taking the Wizards to the finals. Imagine if he did that and won a chip with the Wizards. I don't know if Brady's going to win with the Bucks. We'll see. But, just imagine if he took the Wizards to the finals after all those years winning championships with the Bulls. This is basically that. You have to make the comparison.
I disagree.
Okay.
I don't think that he should be compared to Michael Jordan because MJ is undefeated. Okay.
Oh,
No,
we're going there.
look. That has to do with it. It has to do with it. All right. And to me, I think it would make more sense if people compare Joe Montana to Michael Jordan than it would be to Tom Brady. Tom Brady, I would say that he's more so one of the best leaders. He's not one of the best athletes. I would more so give the edge to the greatest football player, to Jerry Rice, because he's broken all the records, right? Kind of like a Wayne Gretzky, and he's won.
Yeah.
I can't really say that. I can't really like if I look back 50 years from now or whatever, or let's say like 50 years into the future, and I look back, I would not be thinking of Tom Brady as a Mount Rushmore athlete. I will be thinking of potentially Patrick Mahomes as a Mount Rushmore athlete because of his impact. If we want to talk about impact, Patrick Mahomes, his ability to take over games and his leadership, it can be on display for the next 10 years. I'm not saying that he's going to win as much as Tom Brady, but I don't think that he has to in order to be considered the greatest football player ever.
I think, though, when you look back, and we're talking about Marvin McIntyre here in the Mike Canadian podcast, it would be hard to discount a guy that's gone to what's going to be 10 Super Bowls and won 6 of them. It's not like, again, it's kind of like LeBron James, except LeBron James, or at least for now, does not have a winning record in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, right. I mean,
he's 4-6. Brady's 6-3.
Right. We should not compare LeBron to Tom Brady at all. That's
right.
Disrespectful.
No, I'm not making the comparison there, but I'm saying, in terms of how many times they've been.
And if you think about this, LeBron, he's not on the Mount Rushmore. Okay.
Yeah.
I would consider like Tom Brady more like a Magic Johnson. More like a Magic Johnson, where he's won and he's lost.
But here's the thing, though.
Still the most accomplished quarterback to ever play.
Yeah, but my thing is this, and I don't mean to cut you off. It's just,
go ahead.
When you look back on the Mount Rushmore 50 years from now, like you said, let's say Tom Brady wins this a couple of Sundays from now. Let's say he beats the Chiefs. The man will have won 7 Super Bowls. If that's his final career total, if his final career total is 7, we can't discount that, because it's not like Robert Horry winning 7 championships, or Robert Horry was obviously not the best player on any of those teams. He was a role player that happened to be in the right place at the right time. Tom Brady, more times often than not, on each of the championship teams he's been on, he's been the main catalyst. He's been one of the main reasons, if not the main reason, that they've won the Super Bowl. So to not put him on the Mount Rushmore, especially if he ends up winning this 7th championship, I don't know if you could sell me on that one, bro.
Yeah, but is it not only just like it's a lot of things that go into making a winning player. It's Adam Vinatieri.
Mm-hmm.
All right. It's Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
And it's obviously Tom Brady as well. I feel like, without some of his throws and some of the plays that he made, they would not be where they are, but where he is in terms of his career.
Mm.
But I would say that if we if you just want to go off of impact, obviously he's very impactful. But I feel like what we are seeing now from Patrick Mahomes, we could potentially see the greatest football player of all time.
Yeah, and we'll get to that a little later. Yeah, That's a fair point because I mean, well, talent-wise, yeah, Jerry Rice is up there for sure. 'Cause people forget. I mean, again, I mean, younger fans forget because older fans don't. But, or like I said, fans that have done their homework.
And
Jerry
not only
Rice was
is
like,
it talent, not only is it talent, it's also accomplishment as well. You know,
yeah, because even I was going to say, even though the Raiders did not win the Super Bowl because they got blown out by the
right,
Bucks when John Gruden was coaching them, Jerry Rice was 40 years old, something like that, helping the Raiders get to the Super Bowl.
right,
At 40. This is
right, yeah,
this is after the Niners dumped him because T.O. was the flavor of the month. I mean, that was 40.
right.
So you talk about consistency, yeah. But I will say before we move on though, as far as the most talented football player, how dare you, sir, discount the one, the only Eli? No, I'm kidding. I was gonna say Lawrence Taylor though is up there in the
No, yeah,
discussion
yeah,
too.
of
Yeah,
course,
Lawrence Taylor, you got to throw Lawrence Taylor in there as far as
yeah.
removing positions. As far as the most talented football player to ever sat on the field, on the defensive side, Lawrence Taylor's got to be the greatest.
Like to me, I don't think that Tom Brady is a top 10 athlete of all time. But
No,
I
yeah, I think most people would agree.
but a lot of people, they're trying to make that case just because of what he's done.
Mm.
But I will say this is that he's the most. You can make the case that he's the best leader of all time.
Yeah,
That I will not try to discount. Like I said, I would compare him more to a Magic Johnson than I would a LeBron James. I feel like I have Magic Johnson over LeBron James still, and that is a more better comparison for me. Um, but I would not compare Tom Brady to Michael Jordan. To me, I think that more so goes to athlete and also accomplishments.
is Tom
So
Brady a top five leader all time in your eyes?
I think he's definitely top five. He's top
Okay, yes, sir. I would put him top five if I combined all the sports right now. Yeah,
right,
I'd have to put him top five for
right.
sure.
But as far as like Mount Rushmore athletes,
Oh yeah, athletes. Okay,
right, athletes,
yeah,
like
he's not there.
right, right. Like, I'm not trying to say like he's not a good athlete, but what I would say is that if you want to talk about accomplishments and athleticism, that's why Michael Jordan is so high. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
That's why certain players are so high, you know, and that's what I'm talking about. Patrick Mahomes, if he wins and he puts up great numbers again, that's why that his impact will supersede Tom Brady because of that reason. Because of his athleticism and what he does um, in the on the field. So all that stuff with the accomplishments, all that stuff has to do with how he should be viewed on the Mount Rushmore stage. So yeah.
makes sense.
Now let's move on to the next question. We just talked about some of this.
Yeah,
Uh, is Tom Brady the greatest leader? Wait, hold on. Is Tom Brady the greatest of all time, or is he the best leader?
for me, and I said this before. He's as far as quarterbacks go, and I'll say this line because my listeners have never heard it, neither of yours. You've heard it in our conversations off the air, but Tom Brady to me is the greatest quarterback of all time. If you said, however, if you said that you had Joe Montana as the greatest of all time, I would not disagree with you. That's one of those things where I would not get mad at you. I would understand
Right,
if you had Joe Montana as your number one all time. That's totally fair.
right,
It's kind of like as well. Um, yeah, to use a baseball comparison, my baseball, or not a baseball, excuse me, a hockey comparison. All my hockey fans will understand this. If you want to sit here and say, I'll say Wayne Gretzky's the GOAT, but if you want to sit here and say that Mario Lemieux or Gordie Howe is your GOAT, I wouldn't get mad at you because that's totally fair. For me, is he the greatest athlete of all time? Like we just covered, no. Greatest
right,
quarterback of all time? Yeah. Greatest leader of all time? There's been a lot of great leaders,
right,
and it doesn't necessarily have to be a star player. How many times have we seen on certain teams in any sport where the leader is the veteran that maybe doesn't play that much, but he's such an excellent leader?
right.
He really knows how to rally the troops. How many times has there been a guy like that? We
Yeah,
don't really. we don't. It's hard to put that kind of intangible into its proper context because it's an intangible that doesn't necessarily have to belong to a star player. If it does, great, because then that makes that star player the total package. But it doesn't have to. Is he the greatest of all time in terms of football player? No. We would both say Jerry Rice. I would kind of have to say Lawrence Taylor too, as far as skills and as far as impact. Is he the greatest quarterback of all time? In my mind, yes.
Right. Is it still up for grabs for you?
I mean, if Patrick Mahomes carves out this insane career where he wins a bunch of championships and continues to rewrite the record books like he's already done, then yeah. I don't want the Patrick Mahomes is the only reason I haven't shut the door.
Right.
And I think a lot of people feel that way. If Patrick Mahomes was like Deshaun Watson, right? Am I saying Deshaun Watson is an average quarterback? No, Deshaun's very good. And Deshaun is a guy that, listen, if he got traded to, this is not going to happen. But if he got traded to my Giants tomorrow, I'm not complaining, obviously. Right. But is he a transcendent potential to be an all-time great quarterback? No, I wouldn't say so. Patrick Mahomes is different, much different. Right. And the fact that he has come along and the fact that he has done what he's done to this point in his career, and he's not even, I don't even think he's 25 yet. Is he 25?
I think he's 25, yeah.
Oh, he's not even close to 30, and he hasn't even had 5 years in the league yet.
Yeah, he's not in his prime. Not in his prime.
Right, and that's the scary part. Imagine when he hits his prime years, and he's already doing all this stuff.
That's another level.
That's why it's still up for grabs, because he's the only reason I won't shut the door on that debate.
Right. I would say that he is. I would hold on. I would edge him over Joe Montana because he did get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I would edge him that. I would edge him that because we never did see Joe get to the Super Bowl, despite us believing that he would have got there. So, but I would edge him over Joe Montana right now. But would I take him on my team? I would take Joe Montana. That's how I'm viewing it. But
you hang on, just to clarify what you said earlier, as far as that confused me a little bit.
Okay.
Joe Montana never got to the Super Bowl, despite us thinking that he was going to get there, that he wasn't going to get there.
For his last year with the Kansas City Chiefs.
Oh, okay. All right, there.
Yeah. Right.
I was a little confused for a second. That's my bad.
Yeah. No. But yeah. Obviously, Joe got there, and he's won 4 Super Bowls and he's undefeated. But the thing is that when it comes to like Tom Brady getting to another one or the amount of time that he's been there, I'm gonna have to give the edge to Tom Brady. I'm gonna have to give the edge to Tom Brady, especially for this one. When we did not really expect for him to go there, we actually had the Packers going there, so I'm gonna have to give the edge to Tom Brady over Joe Montana as of now.
No, yeah, I thought I made my cardinal mistake. I'm not a betting man. Obviously, the only times I've ever really rooted against Tom Brady in the playoffs is because as a New York sports fan, I don't. It's different. Like, for example, I do not like the Red Sox. I don't have much of a fondness for the Bruins. I don't have much of a fondness. Well, I don't really hate the Celtics. I'm indifferent towards the Celtics because the Knicks aren't good enough to have a rivalry with anybody. I've never hated the Patriots. There's no reason for me to hate the Patriots. The only time I ever rooted against Tom Brady, obviously, is when my Giants were playing him in the Super Bowl those 2 times. I made my mistake, though. I remember I told you the other day on the phone, I shouldn't bet against Tom Brady. I bet against Tom Brady. Right, and every time I say, oh, yeah, he's cooked, he's done, the guy more times often than not comes through and reminds us as to why, you shouldn't do that. And so, yeah, no, I right now he's my GOAT, but could that change 10 years from now when Patrick Mahomes is like 30 something years old and has 7 Super Bowls to his name? Yeah, it could. Especially if he's undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Patrick Mahomes necessarily has to have the amount of Super Bowls as Tom Brady. I think that, if he just gets like 4 or 5, that he puts up great numbers, that's all he needs. Great numbers, and that's it.
Yeah, if Tom goes out in 2 weeks and plays a great game and falls just short, if it's just one of those gunslinging type games where the team with the ball last wins, I can't slander Tom for that. It's not his fault if that happens.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's move on. We're gonna skip one of the questions because we already answered it.
We pretty much covered that one.
Um, does Bill Belichick care?
He's such a hard guy to read. That's the thing. Bill Belichick is like the master of the poker face. Bill
Right.
Belichick could be furious at you, or he could be really, really happy with you, and you
Right.
wouldn't know. You wouldn't
Right.
know either way. I mean, at least that's what he portrays publicly. Behind the scenes, I don't know. We're not in that locker room. Only the guys that have played for him and are currently playing for him would be able to attest to that. I don't think he cares because Bill's concerns are probably about how he's going to revamp the team this offseason. Listen, I mean, Cam Newton came down with coronavirus and got injured, and that was unfortunate for how that worked out because I was really rooting for Cam to have a bounce back season and do a great job in New England. I don't think Bill cares. I mean, listen, Bill and Tom were together for 20 years. Even before he took over, Tom was drafted in 2000 and backed up Drew Bledsoe that first year before Drew nearly died on the field because that guy got hit and had internal bleeding. Um, so I mean, when you have a relationship with somebody that for that long of a time, um, Robert Kraft kind of talked about it. Robert Kraft was the owner of the Patriots, of course, for those who don't know. He said that Tom's like a son to him. And I imagine
Right.
that Bill Belichick has to feel the same way. You spend 20 years with somebody, you have that much success. You have to feel a deep sense of love for that person. If anything, I don't know personally, this is only my speculation. I would imagine that Bill's happy for Tom. I don't think that Bill's spiteful about this. I think Bill's focus right now is, like I said, how he's going to revamp the Patriots.
I agree. I would say that his focus is on building the team and trying to get the team better. I honestly think that he is happy for Tom Brady,
Yeah.
and I feel like he only wants the best for Tom. And honestly, I really don't think that he really cares like that. But I will say that I feel like they both carry responsibility for what they did for their own franchise.
Yeah.
Just in terms of, I would say that it was a partnership. I would not say that it was one leading towards the other in terms of leadership, and that's just how I saw it. I would not say that one needed more than the other. So
Yeah, the comparison I would make would be the Spurs dynasty, to where it was a lot of Greg Popovich, but it was also a lot of Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili. All of them had an equal part as to why the Spurs were able to be so successful and win 5 NBA championships.
yeah, right, right. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Does Bill Belichick go to another Super Bowl?
You never say never. It's kind of like the same thing I said earlier in regards to, Aaron Rodgers getting back to the Super Bowl. You never say never. I can see it because, especially like, listen, I mentioned Matthew Stafford earlier. You never know. I mean, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but imagine if the Patriots just blew the Texans away with the trade offer for Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson has a no trade clause, so Deshaun can pick and choose where he wants to go, which is why this is going to be so unique. But imagine if they get Deshaun Watson, because with the Patriots, you just never know, right? Imagine now that Matthew Stafford is going to get traded. Imagine if they pick up Matthew Stafford, who is still a very effective quarterback, just needs to be in the right system, which is obviously not in Detroit. I could see Bill easily being back there. He had a down year. Obviously, there's a lot of different things going on. Like I said, Cam got injured and that hampered him, and he got coronavirus. And we know what coronavirus does as far as affecting your energy levels, even for the people who are most in shape. And so, yeah, I can see Bill being back there next year. I think it'll be a different cast next year. But I'll never dismiss Bill Belichick. I think he's like same thing. You never bet against Tom Brady. I am not about to bet against Bill Belichick either.
I agree. I agree. I think that Bill Belichick, he's proven it. He's proven that he could coach very well in this league, and I could definitely see him getting back there. I think that he's extremely intelligent, and he knows the right X's and O plays to put his team back there. And like I said, let's say that he trades for Jimmy Garoppolo, and then they get right back together, and you never know.
Imagine.
Yeah, that'll be really
Crazy.
really funny, really funny. But
Yeah.
I don't think the door is shut on him. But the crazy thing about the whole thing is that people in the media, they believe that this is the year that that Bill Belichick has to prove himself. But no, it takes time for coaches to get to where they want to be sometimes, and I
Takes
think
time to
that
rebuild the roster.
right, exactly, and I think that the team was going through some injuries. It's not even just Cam Newton; it was also the defense as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's about it, man. For my questions on the NFC Championship game and what we think about the legacies and how we think about Aaron Rodgers and things like that. And we talked about Bill Belichick. So let's move on to your questions for the AFC.
AFC